So today we ended up getting the 32 million downloads campaign on JP. Not only is this another major milestone, but it brings with it all the usual trappings of download campaigns. However, it is significant because it represents a new milestone for JP players. This is basically going to add the Start Dash limited 5-star guaranteed summon part 2 to the JP server. This was something that NA already had. This was basically given to us a while ago, and JP is just now catching up in that regard. It's a really weird thing, but basically JP was owed a GSSR because NA had an extra one that JP didn't have. And that was kind of odd for a while, and we were wondering when they were ever going to haul it out. I'll be frank with you guys, I don't know why it took them this long. Maybe they wanted to specifically pair it up with the 32 million downloads campaign, but it is what it is. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, but just real quick, going through some of the campaigns here, basically to talk to you guys about all the stuff that you guys are going to be getting. You do have login bonuses. These are going to end up getting you just some really nice rewards, including a rare prism and up to 30 Saint Quartz, assuming you log in. Similarly, you will also end up having new master missions, as this is part of the main quest clear support missions that they're adding in. So basically, if you have done story up through part 1 at least, you will get a ton of extra resources, including a Bond Grail, 360 5-star all Embers, 2,800 evocation leaves, 95 million QP, and statues and other things. So definitely a nice upping of the sort of like tutorial / milestone missions, and just more rewards for completing story. Also, if you have cleared Ordeal Called number 4, you will basically be given a Crystallized Lore and a Holy Grail. So there is another incentive for you guys to go ahead and get the story done. I keep saying this before, I've said it already a lot on the stream, but it's pretty clear the devs want everybody to get caught up and to finish the story. This does appear to be the primary metric by which the developers are judging the game and its continued capacity to go on. So take this, if nothing else, as a personal plea from me, but if you're somebody like me that likes FGO and you would like to see the game continue onward, please make sure you guys, if you are playing JP, that you actually do Ordeal Call 4. This is something that the devs are heavily looking at. This is apparently going to be the determining factor as to whether or not like Nasu and Takeuchi just keep kind of production the way it has been, or whether or not they slack off and take a break. So if you would like it to not just be perpetually dead periods after the end of part 2, I highly advise trying to get done part 2 as fast as you possibly can. And that includes Ordeal Call. So please finish Ordeal Call for the rest of us that actually do like the game. Now, because this download campaign, usually we end up getting a refresh of the shop, and that's no different here. You guys will have another crack at all of your usual trappings of the Mana Prism and Rare Prism shop. However, there will be a new version put in there specific to the download campaign, so you'll be able to basically buy 2 sets of items instead of just 1. We're also going to get some returning craft essences, basically in the Mana Prism shop of, in the Mana Prism / Da Vinci version of the shop there, so that you guys will have a new roster of available old craft essences in case you had missed out on them. These are basically just old welfare CE server events, but some of them are very good. I highly recommend taking a look at things like Ocean Flyer, aerial drive, and made in Halloween especially can be very nice in a like solo or challenge environment. So some of these are very much worth your mana prisms if you didn't get them the first time around. We also ended up getting 4 new permanent command codes, the 5-star command codes added back to the shop. Some of these are particularly interesting, particularly the Da Vinci one that can actually be used to set up another unit in the party to have more NP damage. As a command code, that is fairly unique and fairly nice. So that's also worthy of your attention. Similarly, during this time period, all types of Ember Gathering will be available for a limited time, and the AP consumption of those basically will be reduced. So you'll have half cost Ember Gathering with every type available. Definitely nice for those of you guys that are trying to get stuff leveled up, especially if you have just managed to pull a new unit off the GSSR. There'll also basically be a banner for Morgan Le Fay coming back here. Definitely another interesting one, as it's been a hot second since she's had one. And there will be, during this period, the strength of getting a great or super success doubled basically during this time period. So definitely another thing that you guys can take advantage of. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about the GSSR and what you need to know about it. This is going to cost you 12 paid Saint Quartz. This is going to be a potluck GSSR. We actually haven't had one of these in a while. This is the way they used to run GSSRs in the game, and frankly, I'm glad we got away from it because these are not as good for you, the player. Basically, nowadays, we usually have pools that we can choose from that allow us to narrow our choices down a whole lot more. However, this is just a permanently available GSSR. You will have 30 days by which to complete the GSSR once you're eligible for it. The eligibility is determined by finishing part 1. So once you finish part 1, you'll have 30 days to do this GSSR, or you lose it. But it is a permanent addition to the game, and it will be offered to every single player at least the one time. So, like we mentioned before, it is potluck. It is 12 quartz, but it does include only a select amount of limited characters. This then makes it a really intriguing thing, but it also means you don't have a whole lot of control over it. Just kind of talking in general about the overall status of each of these characters and what you guys can expect of it, we're going to go through each one by one. So starting off the bat here, we have Arthur basically as our first 5-star saber here. Arthur has had a lot of upgrades over the years. Arthur is certainly an intriguing unit, and if Arthur gets the like NP interlude he desperately needs and deserves, Arthur will actually be a pretty solid option as a Buster AoE saber. However, Arthur after 10 years still doesn't have that upgrade, so the question is going to be begged as to whether or not he will eventually get it. I'm sure at some point, due to a tie-in or some sort of story they wish to tell, he will get it. But at least for right now, Arthur's gotten the short end of the stick. So to me, he's not necessarily one of the best options to roll. There are many other better AoE sabers than Arthur at the point in time. Sigurd is another interesting one. Sigurd has also kind of gotten the short end of the stick. He has at least gotten some attention. His attack power is very good. His crit damage is absolutely bonkers, as he has a 100% crit damage modifier. The big issue that Sigurd needs, he either needs his crits to become a little bit more consistent, which is something you can do with proper support, or he needs higher NP damage. This has definitely been one of the detractions against him over the years, is that he doesn't really stand toe-to-toe with the likes of, say, Musashi. But Musashi also doesn't have the crit damage that Sigurd has, so it ends up being a little bit of a trade-off. But most people prefer just higher overall damage, and therefore Sigurd usually is not the best choice for a lot of people. Next up, and our last saber here, is going to be Musashi. Musashi lacks in the department of charge and the capability of really just kind of automating her output and getting back to another MP over and over and over again. But she more than makes up for that with stellar card performance and absolutely just bonkers levels of NP damage. Musashi is the game's best single target saber in that regard, and definitely cuts like a knife through butter against most enemies that she's up against. In that regard, Musashi is probably the best saber you can get on this GSSR, but it definitely is going to depend on your own luck. Now, next up here, we have James Moriarty. Unfortunately, his VA did just pass away just the other day. It's a big, sad moment for us all. But Moriarty is, at least as an archer, in a little bit of a better spot now with the Koyanskaya and Oberon systems coming into the game. He used to be really in a bad spot due to that, but over the years, he's gotten a couple of upgrades. He still could use an NP interlude. This has actually been one of my main gripes, is that a lot of the archers just go relatively unnoticed, particularly the 5-star single target archers. They desperately need upgrades. Moriarty is no stranger to that. He's absolutely somebody that needs it as well, but he is still fairly operable and has at least basic functionality thanks to the new Buster supports. Well, newer at least. Next up here, we have Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc is also, ironically enough, probably somebody else that could use an upgrade at this point. Her looping is stellar. She was one of the first units in the game that could Black Grail loop, and she absolutely still can and still does it very well. What's her issue then? Her issue is actually not her refund at all. It is purely her damage output. Compared to the likes of Durga and some of the other more upgraded AoE archers, Joan of Arc as an archer has not gotten any love or any attention. She is untouched since she released, all the way back in, what was that, year 2 or year 3? I don't even remember off the top of my head anymore. But still, she could definitely use some sort of NP interlude at this point in time. It would help her hang with the likes of some of the newer and more upgraded units. So to me, that's what she could use, but she is still a very, very good solid looping and farming option for a lot of people. Aresh Kagal is going to be our only Lancer on this banner, and she's not a bad one to be here. That is to say, she is a limited unit, but her upgrades have made her much, much, much more viable over the years. She has gone from being the least damaging AoE Lancer to now she is one of the most damaging AoE Lancers. She is only surpassed, if her super effective Earth niche is not in play, by Melisson and now Lartoria. Lartoria actually ends up being the game's highest AoE damage Lancer at this point in time due to the adjustments with Waver, but Aresh Kagal is still very much in the mix and very good, both as a party buffer and somebody that can Black Grail loop. This may come as a surprise to you, but Aresh Kagal's upgrades have drastically helped her out, as well as the inclusion of things like the 5th append into the game, really making her a lot more capable. So she is a very, very good pickup on this banner. Next up for our riders, we have basically made Alter here as a single target quick rider. She's actually not bad. Her primary thing has always been damage output. Her kit does leave a little bit to be desired in terms of its clunkiness, but reloaded memes are definitely still solid. So wherein lies the issue? Well, she doesn't really have charge, so you will rely on card performance in order for her to get back to multiple MPs. And you definitely have a problem in the fact that Ozzy has gotten so buffed at this point that Ozzy just stands over the top of her and has much, much, much more utility. So to me, Maid Alter probably could, ironically enough, use a like NP interlude or some sort of damage buff, but we'll just have to see into the future. Also, don't nitpick me on using the term NP interlude. This is the old term that we always used to use whenever an NP needed an upgrade. Just assume if I say NP interlude, I'm meaning the same thing as NP strengthening. Next up here, we have Ivan the Terrible. Ivan's actually still probably the best AoE writer out there, at least as far as Buster is concerned. His damage output is absolutely stellar, and he definitely has some nice utility, though he has been rivaled by the likes of, say, Takeda Shingen, who can also Black Grail loop. So there is some interesting stuff at play for Ivan. Still, he is a very, very solid pickup. He hits very hard, though he is going to be the epitome of somebody that you're probably going to want to start out with a 50% CE rather than, say, like from 0. For casters, this is actually interesting. They give us Scotty as one of the potential pulls. Now, with a meta caster in that regard, or a meta support in general, usually it's either you have them or you don't. Getting that additional copy if you already had Scotty would maybe not be the best of solutions, and this may actually be a reason for some people to delay rolling OG Scotty until they've at least completed part 1, because they might just get her off of the GSSR here. But that being said, beggars can't be choosers. Usually a lot of the time you're going to have to just go after whatever meta supports you can, because the faster acquisition of those particular units will just make your account better in the short term and get it online much faster. Still, Scotty as the original form of her definitely does leave a little bit to be desired. We recently got Tiamat into the game, and Tiamat's charge skill is probably more the equivalent of something that Scotty needed, and it is a decent prototype of what Scotty could be like if we could manage to get Scotty to her NP naturally. But because we cannot do that in the normal cadence of a 3-turn without some sort of machinations on our part, I'm going to say that Scotty still remains as a very viable meta support for Quick, and definitely a good pickup, but I do think she could use some tweaking at this point by the devs. Next up, we get Umu Caster. Umu Caster recently got a buff. This actually did help her out some, but I was kind of disappointed with the buff, and it did not take her probably as far as she needed to go. She still gets out damaged by Ace in that regard, but the upgrade did really help damage output overall. So I can't say she's in a bad spot. She's just not in the best of spots particularly. So there are stiff competition in the AoE caster category, and she does lose still to Ace, as well as potentially even someone like Coup Caster. So that definitely does mean that she could use some love, but she is still a fairly solid unit in her own right, and the 5th append has helped out her ability to work in the Koinskaya system, with her 3rd skill being able to be lowered from a 7-turn to a 6-turn cooldown. Next up, we have the Assassins. Semiramis is here, and well, she did get a nice upgrade. Semiramis still absolutely could use a whole lot more. To me, Semiramis is not really a good pickup here. There are multiple other better options as an AoE assassin, including literally just from the welfare category. Picking up the likes of Gray will probably net you better results in the short term. As far as the single target assassin goes, we have basically the old man of the mountain, aka King Hassan. King Hassan is definitely in a much better spot than Semiramis. He is really difficult to bring down in a challenge environment. He hits very solidly in terms of damage, and due to his upgrades, he definitely can hold his own. In that regard, he is a really solid pickup. He's always been a pretty cool character and unit, so don't feel bad if you get King Hassan. Next up for the Berserkers, we have Mysterious Heroine X Alter. This is a similar situation to Maid Alter. We basically have the likes of both Castoria Berserker and Lilith now as competitors for MHXA in the Berserker category. So that leaves MHXA in a weird spot. While her damage is absolutely stellar, everything, just like with Maid Alter, is reliant on card performance. She does not have any charge and does not have any survivability, so it makes it quite difficult to get her to operate in the current systems. I believe she could use a pass. Her damage output is definitely still solid, but you do run into the problems of basically needing to support her extremely well in order for her to succeed at the highest level. Next up, we have Hijikata. Hijikata did at least get guts. This really helped him out quite a bit. He is a 1 HP memer, as I like to refer to them, basically a berserker who will deal damage the less health they have. They will deal more damage. So Hijikata has always been solid for that purpose, but now that he has all the tools within his own kit that he needs to succeed, it is a much better sort of existence for him. Still, I usually am not a huge fan of the 1 HP memers. I don't like having to take somebody all the way down to the lowest possible health to get the most damage out of them. It is a very risk/reward type of setup, and it can definitely backfire on you pretty easily. So not a bad pickup with Hijikata, but definitely one that you will have to pay attention to and be careful with. Now we make it to the extra classes here. We have Sherlock Holmes, and Holmes is a fairly interesting both arts and crit support. Holmes is also going to be widely known as pretty much the only one in the game that can give everybody else in the party invuln pierce and defense pierce. This is a really, really good cocktail for him. Holmes has always kind of been offensive crit support because of this, and he does result in some really interesting compositions. Now, that being said, if that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, feel free to try to avoid him as much as possible, but Holmes is a very solid and fun unit to use, and you definitely won't regret having him. For our alter egos, we actually have 3 options here. We start out with basically Okitan. Okitan is certainly not a bad unit, and due to the Koyanskaya and Oberon systems existing in the game, she has gotten a whole lot better. So what is the problem? Well, the problem for her is basically that Tiamat exists and just pretty effortlessly out damages her. So Okitan probably could use something at this point. She's kind of at every step over, the multitude of years that she has existed, kind of gotten to a point where she was finally turning the corner and getting better and being like maybe one of the better alter ego options. And then each time the devs did something to basically change that, including buffing Kiara, releasing new units, and basically at this point just kind of absolutely destroying her with Tiamat. So it is what it is. She's certainly still a cute unit and definitely a solid one, but there are better options out there. Now, Kiara alter ego is, ironically enough, somebody that had been the primary competition for Okitan for years. She still has one of the better kits overall out there in the game because it kind of does everything. So what's the problem? Well, same deal. She's basically just gotten trounced by Tiamat at this point. She is completely outclassed in terms of damage, despite the fact that her kit has functionally everything it needs to succeed. It is just pure and simple power creep, and it's definitely one of the issues that hurts Kiara over the years. That being said, Kiara is not a bad pickup because of the breadth and variety of scenarios that her kit can cover, so she is definitely a decent option for you. And last but certainly not least, we have Melt Lilith here. Melt is basically going to end up being your best alter ego that you can pick up at this point. Melt is the primary pressure being exerted on single target cavalry class units because Melt's damage output has gotten so ridiculous that you'd kind of be a fool not to get her. So in this regard, Melt is an extremely good pickup and possibly one of the best pickups in this GSSR if you don't already have her. She's just a very good single target alter ego, and excels at her job. For Moon Cancers, the only one we have here is 5-star AoE BB. This is basically your Buster AoE one, and the interesting part about her is going to be her card lock memes. She still does have things like 50% charge, hard survivability, AoE drain on her NP that can make her useful. But the primary reason a lot of people will turn to Summer BB is because they actually really just like the card lock capability that she has. The upside is that you have the ability to lock in any hand that you get. The downside is there is RNG as to whether or not you get the right hand. There are certain ways with newer units that can manipulate cards where we can maybe lock in an entire solid hand for one unit. But beyond that, there's usually an opportunity cost. That is to say, you have to take someone like Summer BB over maybe another more meta support. So it is what it is, but it definitely can be a very nice utility to have and can allow already very strong newer units to pop off even harder. So BB is a solid pickup if you did not already have her. For our foreigners, rounding out the end of the list here, we have Abigail Williams. Abby is basically in her single target buster form a just phenomenal boss killer. She's an excellent unit to throw into challenge compositions when you don't know what you're facing. That being said, most players would probably prefer to go in armed with information, so you don't necessarily see that being too common of a tactic. But Abby just specializes in debilitating the enemies, getting to her NP again and again thanks to her numerous buffs, and buff stripping enemies before her damage goes out. So it's very hard to stop an Abby that is properly supported, and that does make her a pretty solid pickup. And then last on the list is Miss Hokusai. She is a fantastic AoE foreigner, and she does have the capability of looping. She can stack defense downs on the enemy and does have hard survivability. The issue is her refund can be suspect at times, and definitely her damage can leave a little bit to be desired. She does have the anti-man attribute niche, and that can definitely help her out, but this is something to be concerned with, as overall we do have some pretty insane monsters in the foreigner class as well, with the likes of Kukulkan. So Hokusai can be a decent pickup. She's still got one of the most beautiful NPs in the entire game, and I definitely love her ascension forms, but admittedly performance could be better and she could probably use yet another buff. So that is the list of all of your 5-star units in this GSSR. Honestly, it's really just going to boil down to, more than anything, what your account needs. But let me know who you guys get in the comments below. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts. Also, again, which one of these units do you have your eyes set on the most? Hopefully that is the one you got, but I'll be curious to hear either way. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the 32 million downloads campaign. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys for the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're almost to 18,000 subs. We'll celebrate with a barbecue mukbang when that happens. Oh. Do, 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 do.